Hi guys, welcome to the next behind the scenes of how I am setting up and shooting toys. In this installment, I'm going to show you how I did this recent piece. I mainly want to take you through the lighting setup, but also give you a bit of a rundown and insight into types of gear that I've been using recently. The camera of my choice is the Pentax KP, you can see here. It's a very underrated crop sensor DSLR, perhaps one of the best low light performing cameras on the market. And I've chosen this camera for several reasons. It's fantastic for still life and toy photography because of its pixel shift resolution option. And basically what that means is its ability to be able to shoot at almost approximately 96 megapixels. So it's fantastic. It basically takes full pictures and stacks them internally within the camera, and then it spits it out. And then you combine all those 4 images to get a very high resolution image. So now I've got this entire camera now mounted on a tripod here. I'm kind of growing on this tripod actually. It's the Vanguard compact travel tripod. And until recently I've acquired this 20 to 40 mil Pentax lens as well, and it's a beautiful silver edition, so it matches my camera. Yeah, I've got this entire camera in an underslung mode, which keeps the camera fairly in a low mode angle and fairly close to the ground. So if I want to get any low angle shots, I can certainly do so. So in this case, you can see this diode here. I need to get it fairly low, and I've achieved that. Now, before I take you through the lighting setup, I want to show you how I'm capturing my images. The camera is actually tethered all the way down here to my laptop. And I'm currently using Lightroom, so this is a method of shooting called tethered shooting or tethered capturing. And what it does is whatever information you see here on the camera will also be reflected in Lightroom itself. And as most photo connoisseurs will know, tethered shooting is not a new thing, so it's quite common. So that allows me again to view the images very quickly, in more detail, compose a lot of my shots, look at certain things that I may have missed and probably is hard to see on these tiny screens, and allows me to be able to review the actual photograph. So for this particular photograph, it was basically just one shot, which was great because I composed it and then got all my settings right, including my exposure, my colors, and boom, I just hit that button down there. You can see here, some of this stuff reflects what the camera data is. So I've shot this photograph at 1/6 of a second. They're 4.5 ISO 200 white balance daylight. And then let's go through the lighting setup. So altogether, I'm using 6 fixtures, including practicals, and I'll explain to you what that means in a minute. On this wonderful diorama made by Crashbox Customs, courtesy of Chris Pinkerton. This is I actually use a lot of their stuff. I buy a lot of their stuff. It's fantastic. So the flooring, the wall panels, the interior. I've got just foam board on top, painted in black for the ceiling, because I want to create that light internally without any bleed, and I want to be able to control the light that's actually going inside or actually illuminating the interior of the dio. Like I said, I'm using 6, so I'll go through the 6 and then I'll tell you exactly what those 6 lights are actually doing. Above here, I have a lume cube. Lume cubes are very, very popular. In this case, I have a lume cube with a snoot, and I'll tell you why that's one of my favorite pieces of equipment as far as lighting modifiers are concerned. I'm using a Lytra light here as well with barn doors set at 6,000 Kelvin, and that's providing a backlight. These are RGBW lights. This is 1 key light, and I'll explain to you why they're 2 key lights because I use a technique called cross key lighting. This is in teal, and then the next light is over here. That's currently at hue at 20 and saturation 100%. And you can see here the Crashbox Customs Mythic pieces. I love these things, they're awesome. Thanks Chris, they're awesome. And then here I have these little fill lights, and those are again lume tubes, this time using barn doors. So as far as modification is concerned, I use a lot of barn doors and snoots and gels and diffusers. Those things are absolutely key when it comes to shaping your light. At the back of the hall, you can see where the altar is. There are actually two practical lights illuminating the bust on those shelves, and those come with the actual die itself. Okay, so what are the lights actually doing? Cross key is a technique in which you essentially light the front of a subject, while the same light is also backlighting another object in the picture itself. So if you have two individuals, in this case two figures, you need to create a backlight and a key light source. In this case, both in opposite directions will provide the key light in each particular color. So as far as characterization is concerned, we have on the left Gaius Pontitius Stolo, who is a Praetorian prefect, and he's telling Solomon, who is a gladiatorial warrior, that it is deemed upon his responsibility that Commodus has instructed that Solomon brings him the head of another gladiatorial warrior called Medicus. And in doing so, he's pointing towards the back of that altar where the bust is. And that's actually, shall I say, a statue of Commodus, the emperor himself, and saying, well, that's a reminder. So make sure you bring me his head and you'll have your freedom. He will grant you your freedom and you'll be a free man, basically. So, but we all know the narrative as far as Gladiator is concerned, you know, that awesome movie. I liked it anyway, with Russell Crowe in it. This tells you about how brutal and crazy it used to be back in those days. So you can see the orange and the teal. So on this side, creating more of a teal look, and that's providing a key light source to Solomon. So it's more of a cooler, ominous, brooding, dark kind of vibe, which best exemplifies his character and his personality. And then the warm light over here with the honeycomb, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is providing the key light source to Pontitius, in this case Gaius Pontitius Stolo. I keep saying that because I love his name. And then that orange light's also creating a backlight, like a kicker light at the back of Solomon. So this whole cross key lighting thing, particularly when you have more than one subject in your frame, is very useful. Okay, so that's the key light. Now, I needed to illuminate the back there, so what I did was, other than the two practicals that come at the altar where those two busts are, I wanted to bring out the reds as well in the back of the room. So what I did was I used this one over here, and one of my favorite pieces of kit is this thing over here called a snoot. I'm not sure if you can see this, but this thing over here is a snoot, and what it does is it localizes pools of light, concentrates them into a small tiny pool, and it allows you to be able to focus and spotlight certain areas. So in this case now, what I've done is I've gone through, I've basically created a pool of light to bring out the reds, because, you know, with the roof and controlling light, it's going to be a fairly dark area. So to bring out the reds, the graduated reds, I've taken here this snoot and pointed that light there just to throw just a bit of light to bring out that splash of color in that red there. Now the Lytra has barn doors on it. Now the barn doors allows you to be able to, again, like I said, shape light. And in this case here, I actually have a little tiny opening here. And what that is doing is throwing and creeping light and throwing rays of light so that you can backlight these guys. And then everything else is just practical, incidental, depending on shadows. So always use shadows as well. That's awesome. The reason why I'm using the honeycomb is because I want to control that orange as opposed to flooding that teal across the interior of the room. I want to have more of that teal than I do want to have more of that orange. That is why honeycomb is so important, because it directs or it controls the spread, again, much like a snoot. like I said over here, which is up here, right? Much like a snoot, except like I said, this is more concentrated, that is more directional. So even though you may not see it now in behind the scenes in this video, because it's all over the shop, you will see more of it in the final photograph itself. And then the last thing I have to accentuate my foreground, and the thing about photographs too is the whole compositional aspect, right? So one of the key fundamentals, particularly in good photography, is always having your foreground, midground, and your background. So the subject obviously is those guys over there, right? And then you got the background, and then you have the foreground. And my foreground composition is basically two of these Praetorian guards, just guarding the front, okay? And I have them in my frame to set up the scene, and the best way to light them, other than the ambient light that I have in the room, I also am throwing these tiny lume cubes here, which you'll see, again, with barn doors. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to control the spread of light. So even though these guys are essentially out of focus, it still creates texture, as you can see in the final photograph. So I got one light here, and I have another light over here. And on either side, I have a jackal, Praetorian guard, and another Praetorian guard here. Little tip, if you do want to power all your portable lighting devices, I highly recommend a power hub. So here I have like a USB power hub, and I'm running some of these lights through the power hub. And don't have to rely on batteries and lights going out mid-shoot. Yeah, so really handy. So there you have it, guys. Check it out, and hope you enjoyed this. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want more of these behind the scenes or explainer series, please leave a comment and let us know, and we will be sure to make more of these videos to give you some insight into toy photography.